On the show today, international economic diplomacy for Zambia. Where are we at as a country? We talk to Zesco over what we are seeing in regards ghost workers. They give us answers to that. We also get into the preservation of the ozone layer. Thursday sees a day that will talk about this. We also talk about alternative energy in Zambia in solar. This is Strictly Business. This is Strictly Business. My name is Judy Ngulube. We start off talking about Zambia's economic international diplomacy. Now, we came across something in the newspapers, courtesy of the Zambia Daily Mail, where it's a cartoon, but then there are words and figures that give you food for thought. Who is going to be Zambia's suitor? In that, who is Zambia going to be, talking to in terms of fiscals, the economic growth, and who are they going to be getting, economic advice from when it comes to making sure that Zambia meets its target for economic growth and also other developmental targets that it has as a country. I have Mr. Mambo Hamaundu in studio. He is a financial analyst, and he's going to be helping me talk about this. How are you? Thank you so much for coming through.
Well, thanks for having me.
You saw that. Quite
yes,
interesting there.
Very, the Zambia very interesting.
There was
but for a drawing, I'm not surprised.
For a drawing, yes. But taking your focus onto what has been put there, IMF, EU, is it going to be, World Bank and all those issues? What comes to your mind when you see that, first of all?
Yeah, I indicated, Tonga, it is a polygamous marriage. It's not a marriage of one man, one woman. So from a country perspective, I think that we need all the possible suitors. The IMF have got a different role to play. The World Bank can also play its own role. And other people in the rest of the world can play a different role. And similarly, even for people in the country, they've also got a role to play. That's why I'm saying it's a polygamous marriage. It's a question of getting the best from whoever we engage as a country. Because when you're looking at international diplomacy, economic diplomacy, you are looking at trying to get the best out of a situation. We are in a situation now as a country where we're saying we are facing a number of financial constraints. And how do we get out of this position? I think that is what is important. So as a country, we must engage whoever is willing to come to the discussion table. But what will be important is the end result. What is it that we desire as a country? What is it that we want to get out of this situation? Obviously, it is putting the interest of the country first. So
but doesn't our status currently have anything to do with who we get into these engagements with? Because what's our current position? And does this position have a determining factor with who comes to us or who we go to?
No, I think it's not. Our current position was what we did or what we did not do, as opposed to who did we engage or who did we not engage. I think that is what put us in this position. Of course, there was a time when there was talk to say that we did not need the IMF as an example. Yes. But later on, as we went on, there was a change of focus and there was general acceptance to say we need the IMF, we need the bailout package which we're applying for. And when you look at the IMF as an example, if they grant us a bailout package, it gives us as a country credibility to say, you have borrowed money from the International Monetary Fund. That aspect in itself gives confidence for government to go and engage bondholders and engage other creditors and say, look, we have a plan. We want to move this country away from this economic mess that we are in. We want to do better. But the only way we can do better is, hold on, do not get money from us. Give us a window in which we try and save money. And this money, which ordinarily we should have been paying to you, we will now use it towards reconstructing a particular sector, which will result in us getting money so that in a year or two, we will be able to comfortably pay our interest. We will be able to comfortably pay what we owe the creditors. So I think it's important that we look at things from that perspective. And even as we engage, that is what we must have in mind. It's about the benefit to the country. Are we going to have suitors who come on the table and say, we'll give you a lower lending rate? If they're available, it doesn't matter. They could be from the east, they could be from the west, they could be from the north or the south. But for as long as what they're offering ultimately will be for the benefit of the country, we must grab it and grab it with both hands, because that is what we need in the country.
With that said, all we can do is closely watch our finance minister, as well as, monitor some of, the undertakings that the Mr. President is doing. And of course, we know he's going to the United States very soon, and probably some of those things are what will be discussed.
Exactly.
Thank you so much, Ms. Hamaundu.
Thank you for having me.
You are watching Strictly Business, and let's get into seeing a gentleman who left, the helm of his company after 17 years in style in Babayo in a minute.
Justin Chola holds a Master's in Business Administration from Cornell University, United States of America, as well as a Bachelor's of Science from the University of Newcastle, United Kingdom. Justin has a wealth of experience in the financial services and information technology sectors, acquired in various key management positions. He currently is a non-executive director and co-founder of Bayport, which he built from scratch to what is now a leading multinational entity.
There for our bio in a minute. Now we get to issues of climate change, and we all know that there's a lot of talk when it comes to issues of sustainable development, and when you bring in climate change, the ozone layer, taking care of that, it becomes very serious for a developing country like ours. Now the 16th of September, which is this Thursday, will see to it the International Day of Preservation of the Ozone Layer on Thursday itself. So we saw it very prudent to talk to Zema in regards to this and where we're at as a country, how we fit into this sharing of what the international community will be commemorating, to hear what we have to do as a country and what you as an individual can do as well. Thank you so much for coming through.
Thank you, Judy. I'm good, and you?
I'm very fine, thank you. So now you are coming from Operation South of Zema, and when we look at what we have in our country, what's going on with the weather right now, it's clear to see that there is a change which is very evident. Now, to start with, maybe just very briefly for someone who's hearing Zema for the first time.
Okay, so Zema is a statutory body that was established by an Act of Parliament, Act number 12 of 2011. It was, most people knew Zema previously as the Environmental Council of Zambia, but Zema is basically the lead institution in terms of environmental management in the country.
Okay. Now, when we talk about the ozone layer and this preservation and what we're going to be commemorating on Thursday, issues of the Montreal Protocol come into play. How does this concern the common man on the street, the person who's running his own cantemba?
Maybe let me start by just educating the public what the ozone layer is, because most people hear what ozone layer. So ozone layer is basically a thick layer of ozone gas that exists about 15 to 35 kilometers above the surface of the earth. And this layer is very important because it protects us from ultraviolet radiation, which comes from the sun. Yeah, so it was discovered that in the 80s that there was a big hole at Antarctica, and then these rays were coming down and affecting human health and the environment in that part of the world. So it was then decided that a global campaign, a global treaty be enacted, which was called the Vienna Convention. And then from the Vienna Convention, we now get the Montreal Protocol, which is basically actions that the world took in order to phase out these harmful chemicals. Now, from the common man on the street, we all know that those of us who lived in that age, you see those fridges and so on, which were written CFC free. Even now, you still see fridges which are written CFC free. So basically, those are chemicals that are in refrigeration compartments or in refrigeration equipment, and these chemicals are, when released into the atmosphere, eat up the ozone layer. And the impacts basically are that you've heard of sunburns. Yeah, so when the radiation gets onto your skin, the ultraviolet radiation gets onto your skin, it burns the skin, and some of the effects are cancer of the skin, cataracts, and then you also have the plant life being affected, and hence affecting food security. So that's how it affects the common man on the street.
Okay. Now, you've spoken even touching on the Kigali Amendment to the Montreal Protocol. What is that all about, and what significance will Thursday bring for Zambians? Okay, so basically the Kigali Amendment is an amendment of the Montreal Protocol. So when the Montreal Protocol was agreed upon, the phase out, there was a phase out, and it's one of the most successful conventions in the world. So there was a phase out of the ozone depleting substances. Now, what happens is when you're phasing out these chemicals, you need to have substitutes. Now, it was found out that the actual substitutes, alternatives, were also greenhouse gases, which means they were causing global warming. So then there was need to come up with another agreement, which is the Kigali Amendment, which was agreed upon in 2016 in Kigali. And that agreement looks at phasing out those substances which we call the HFCs, hydrofluorocarbons, and these are the ones that cause global warming and because they are greenhouse gases. With all these, Zema being, at the center of making sure that Thursday is a success, also for Zambia talking about this, there's a new ministry that has been dedicated purely to this. How does it make you feel as Zema, and how does it marry or speak to policies that talk about sustainable development? We are very pleased that the New Dawn government has come up with a ministry that is dedicated to green economy as well as environment, the environment. And we are pleased that the issues, like you heard His Excellency the President talked about issues of environmental sustainability. We only have this world for us today and the future generations. So we need to take care of the resources that we have today. We need to take care of the of our earth, use it today, but also leave it for our children's children and children's that are yet to come. So for us, we are very pleased at SEMA that the New Dawn government has elevated the portfolio of environmental management. What does this do for Zambia's portfolio when it comes to the international scene, having to put a ministry looking solely at this to make sure that we have the green economy in mind at every step, or development agendas, especially towards climate change? I think it will bring us to speed with what's happening all over the world. All over the world, you have what we call green economies, green buildings, and everything that the global community is talking about now is talking about greening our environment, greening our economy. We're talking about electric cars. There are countries now that are moving away from vehicles that are powered using fuel into electric cars, and so it puts us at the global stage where we can actually identify ourselves with what's happening in the global community. All right. Thank you so much for coming through. I have been talking to David Kapindula. He is Manager Operations South Zambia Environmental Management Agency, which is ZEMA. This is Strictly Business.
We are basically trying to provide AC power in the most cost-effective way, in the most scalable and replicable way across the continent, but in particular in Zambia. We got our start here. Our first power systems were installed here. We continue to test and refine our technologies here.
But it's surprising that nowadays we have players who are getting good money, and their salaries are very good, but the football, it looks like it's going down.
You are still watching Strictly Business. Now, technology and innovation is part of the fourth revolution for the community of the world, so to say, the global village. And Zambia isn't remaining when it comes to this. We interest you to this next piece as we get into solar as an alternative energy and how one of the entities that we dealt with is actually adding technology and innovation.
Solar energy is defined as radiant light and heat from the sun, as this is harnessed using a range of ever-evolving technologies such as solar heating, solar thermal energy, and solar architecture. Solar energy is part of the renewable energy family. More importantly, and recently, Zambia has been encouraging the alternatives of energy, and solar has popped up ever increasingly as a high appealing source of electricity. The United Nations Development Programme, in its 2000 World Energy Assessment, found that the annual potential of solar energy was 1,575 to 49,837, with one of its biggest advantages being that it's climate friendly. Standard Microgrid added innovation and technology to create a service to the community in Ngwerere in Lusaka, Zambia. With a project cost of 15 million United States dollars, this has become a reality. Sharon Tembo, a client and beneficiary, appreciates the service, though has a complaint on the cost.
Namba sabena bunobu not nashta appreciate kaidi kwentenzo using candles. Then candles inze kudonsa. So pana tetako system ndi soko ndula but malaiti yakaene chabe niyo dula tinga pempeko chabe kuti yabwelirako chabe pansi, otherwise niyo dula cause from 18 hours to 24 in 10 kwacha ayo siku ana na day mabulbs chabe na pandie pana chinja new connection na tistamba kona TV 2 bulbs multiply 87 per month then ya na eva na kamba 11 kwacha a day so hapa nagula kwa 5 days ya TV.
I asked Brian Somers, the founder and CEO of Standard Microgrid, if the eventual cost is as a result of high production costs.
Everything we do is trying to drive the cost down because the customers themselves are, they don't have any obligation to buy from us. So we make this huge investment into a community, and then we need to make sure the price is at a point that they can afford it, because otherwise we won't recoup our investment. And so everything we do a lot of work on testing what types of things are providing the right amount of value for the customer. For example, if they're using a very old TV that's very inefficient, we'll encourage them to get a flat screen TV, which will drive down the price because it uses much less power. We also enforce energy efficient light bulbs so that they're not using a lower cost like incandescent bulb that actually costs a lot to power, even though the price of the upfront cost is low. So one of the things we work a lot on is education of how do you use power in a way that's highly efficient, which then drives the overall cost to the customer down. We are basically trying to provide AC power in the most cost-effective way, in the most scalable and replicable way across the continent, but in particular in Zambia. We got our start here. Our first power systems were installed here. We continue to test and refine our technologies here, and our biggest operation is here in Zambia. So we're creating an off-grid utility that's managed locally, and we attract foreign investment from France and Sweden and the US government and the UK, all bringing in investment to power rural communities and create development.
I further asked Brian Somers on the collaboration and policies that are speaking to his innovation.
Oh, the visit from the US government officials is fantastic. I mean, we get a lot of support from the US government in developing some of these technologies that enable the business model to work. And I think with the new government coming in, there's just a lot of energy and positive energy, and in particular positive energy coming from the investors. And so having the US government come here and show their support, and for example, the US Trade and Development Agency, they provided funding to us to actually go out and assess over 100 sites across Zambia so that we can build systems just like this, and also work with the communities to make sure that we get the right permitting and all of those things that will enable a project like this to scale up and happen. So they're big supporters, and and frankly, we couldn't do a lot of what we do without their support. So them coming here and having a delegation come from the White House is just so meaningful. The other thing that was so exciting about this new government is we're confident that the Kwacha will improve. When we invest in one of these systems, it's usually a US dollar-based capital investment, and then we obviously have Kwacha-based returns. And so if the Kwacha continues to decline, that customer their income doesn't increase to accommodate that. So the effective return becomes much less, which makes it harder to get the investors. And so with the new government, we're hopeful that the Kwacha will strengthen, and that makes the economics much better, which also makes it a lot easier for us to keep the costs as low as possible for the customer.
As the world goes through the fourth revolution, ICT and innovation being added to such projects is highly and widely supported.
I have been so impressed by this project. It is reaching so many important points, providing access to power and empowering the community. I think these are very critical areas that we need to focus in, and we're just very grateful as a U.S. government agency, the U.S. Trade and Development Agency, that has been able to facilitate this project.
With developing economies like Zambia, who have sustainable development agenda as answers to the growing economy, with evidence of prioritizing green environment solutions, energy sources such as solar soon will become popular in use.
This is Strictly Business. Let's get to Zesco now. I'm going to be engaging the Public Relations Manager, Hazel Zulu, as we get to find out some of the reactions, of course, from the pronouncements that were made recently. And, of course, we'll get to talk the ghost workers, which is at top of our agenda. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you. How are you?
Fine, thank you. Your reaction, first of all, from the President's speech during the opening of, the National Assembly Parliament in regards to cost-reflective tariffs, that's one, and then implementing structural and financial reforms at Zesco.
Thank you so much. The President's speech was very exciting for Zesco because it basically spoke to our vision. You know, our vision is to be the hub of electricity trading in the region by 2025. So he spoke about the issue of, getting to cost-reflective tariffs, which is very exciting for us. Right now, when you look at our tariffs, we are basically, having the lowest tariffs in the region. And that's one reason why you see that there's very little investment. We are not able to attract investment in the energy sector. So to get to a point where we are saying that we need to do this, we need to get to cost reflectivity, it means a lot to us. And what we are talking about really is the issue of the cost of production in terms of generation of electricity, the cost of transmission, and the cost of distribution. And beyond that, we need to have a viable power utility. So for us, when we know that when we reach cost reflective tariff, we will be able to have a viable utility.
The structural and financial reforms, another interesting pronouncement there.
Yes, very interesting. And I'm excited to say that when you talk about structural reforms, we are actually on course as a power utility. When you look at some of our interventions in terms of infrastructure development, I want to focus on the Lusaka transmission and distribution rehabilitation project. This is a project which is to a value of about 246 million US dollars. And this project basically is meant to enhance capacity in terms of transmission and distribution network.
Because of time, I'll rush you a bit.
Okay.
The ghost workers. Social media has been abuzz with that. We'll close with that one.
Yes, we've heard a lot about that issue. And what we are saying, it is not true. And what we are saying as Zesco is that this allegation is, when you look at it, it's a fraud. It's a criminal offense because you cannot have imaginary people as employees in your institution. And for us, we are saying there are institutions out there. We have the SEC, the Anti-Corruption Commission, we have DEC, we have FIC. All these are institutions that can investigate those claims. So I don't want...
And we will end our interview on that. I'm definitely going to call you back because we still have so much to talk to you about. This has been Strictly Business. Thank you so much for joining us. Join us again next week. We'll be calling on Hazel again to give us more information from Zesco.